Well, happy August. Welcome to the August Aging Well. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope you're staying nice and cool and comfortable and dry after the crazy rain we had in Winston-Salem. You know, I always want to welcome our viewers from everywhere. Really, we even have some from overseas. And so everyone is welcome, but sometimes we talk about Winston-Salem because that's where most of us are based. So I hope everyone's enjoying their summer, has had a safe, pleasant summer. I know I came back from our vacation with a little bit of bronchitis, so I'm just really grateful that I'm over that now because aging well waits for no one. So anyway, welcome. We're so glad you're here. And on behalf of Tom Roth with our CTSI, Courtney Hayes with our Pepper Center on Aging, and Audrey Belfaro with our Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, we welcome you. And we thank you so much for making this a date with us on the second Tuesday of every month. You know, speaking of how warm the weather is, we think about what are meals that we can have that will be delicious, wonderful, but also cool, and appreciating the heat that is radiating every time you walk outside. So we've got Chef Rollins from Grayland Estate and International Conference Center going to be sharing a wonderful recipe for a grilled chicken Caesar salad. And the extras are the homemade croutons and the Parmesan crisps. So I hope you enjoy.
Hi, Deb. Thank you for having me as a part of your Aging Well series. Today, we're going to work on a grilled chicken Caesar with a basil Caesar dressing and a Parmesan crisp for the recipe. It's quite simple, actually, and I have all the ingredients kind of laid out right here for you. We want to start with, we have our chicken right here, and it's just clean chicken breast that we just have. Nothing fancy about it. We're going to just put some olive oil on it, a little bit of salt and pepper, but you can season this pretty much how you want to. If you have any seasonings that you like at home and you like to use, you know, it could be a little bit of ancho seasoning or anything like that. This would work on this as well. And just a little bit of extra info. You don't have to just do chicken. You can do beef. You can do your favorite fish, whatever you feel like for your entree. So this is my olive oil that I'm using, but I put it in a bottle, and the reason why I put it in a squeeze bottle is to kind of control how I use the olive oil. So we drizzle. I have my salt and pepper right here, so we're going to just get a couple pinches of salt and pepper. And it's good to do this beforehand, probably about an hour beforehand, so it can just marinate. Toss it around. And we have it right here. Secondly, we have Texas toast for the croutons. As you can see, they're just regular thick Texas toast sliced bread, but I'm going to cut the crust off of them. I cut them in perfect squares. I'm going to toss that in a little bit of olive oil as well, salt and pepper, and if you want to, you can do a little bit of garlic powder. As you can see, they're pretty large dice. Again, some more olive oil. Just enough to kind of coat. A little bit of salt and pepper. Toss it around. And then you can put that to the side. Now, some of these things can be done the day before. You can make your dressing before. You can actually do your croutons before. For the Parmesan crisp, you can actually do that before. The thing with that is that you have to keep that in an airtight container. I'm going to go ahead and start grilling the chicken and push the croutons in the oven. And then I'm also going to get my Parmesan crisps going. I got my chicken grilling. We're gonna get the croutons in the oven. For the Parmesan crisp, we're gonna use wax paper. Obviously, I'm in an industrial kitchen, so my wax paper is a little bit different than what you would get at home. But I'm gonna fold it to fit the pan. I have about a cup of shredded Parmesan cheese. I'm just gonna put this down and kind of just spread it around a little bit. And I'm gonna put it in the oven. And all depends, I know my ovens works different to your ovens at home. So what I would say is when you're doing this at home, I might have 10 minutes on my recipe, but I would advise you to keep an eye on your stuff so it doesn't, you don't feel like, well, the 10 minutes, so you might have to let it go another extra 2 minutes or so just to get it nice and golden brown. You're getting some nice pretty grill marks on the chicken, as you can see. Then next we're gonna work on the Caesar dressing. Okay, we're gonna start our basil Caesar dressing. I have my 3 egg yolks right here. A little bit of red wine vinegar. Lemon juice. My 2 pods of chopped garlic. And I have my fresh basil, but I'm going to put that in last. In this bottle right here, I'm using an olive oil and canola oil blend. The reason I'm not using straight olive oil, I find that when you're using olive oil, it kind of overpowers, especially in dressings, the dressing itself. I'm using a stick blender, or you can use a regular home blender, whatever you have. Also, I'm going to put a little bit of Parmesan cheese inside. Then I'm going to drizzle about a half a cup of oil. Nice and creamy. Then I'm going to take my basil. Kind of mix it up. Okay. And this is how it would look. I don't know if you can take a nice look at that with your basil in there. If you find that your dressing is a little bit too thick for you, you can add a little touch of water. It wouldn't hurt it at all. My chicken is finished grilled. You can see the nice grill marks on it. I'm going to actually push it in the oven to finish it. And then the last thing you want to do is your romaine. Now, This is the clean and wash romaine heart. This the whole thing like this. So all I did was cut it in half long ways like this. You want to keep the heart, which is right here, on the romaine. This helps you to keep the romaine intact for grilling. After grilling, you can cut it off. Okay. So I'm going to just drizzle a little bit of olive oil on it. And I'm just going to grill one side of the romaine. It's been about 10 minutes now. And we can pull our Parmesan from the oven. As you see how it comes into a little bit of a crisp. We got some croutons right here as well. For a grilled romaine, you see, just took about 30 seconds to 45 seconds. That's all you want. That charredness is going to actually give you a little bit of, it's going to change the texture and the flavor of your Caesar salad. You get a little bit of smokiness in there, a little bit of that char taste, which goes excellent with this whole dish. Now it's time for some plating. And I have two different kinds of plates here. I have two different kinds of plates. You can use whatever plate you have at home. I'm using a long plate and a square plate just to give you some options. Our romaine is plated. Now I have my grilled chicken. Okay, we're about to cut the chicken, and I'm going to cut it in about 8 or 7 slices. Just like that. We have both of our plates right here. So now I'm going to turn around and just put the chicken on the dish. So I can do it this way. Right here. So you can just follow along and see what I did. This is a square plate. With your dressing, you're going to just drizzle a little bit of dressing all over. So you can see the dressing on there. Croutons. And last but not least, we're going to use the Parmesan crisp. Now that it's been sitting for about 10 minutes or so. It comes off the wax paper a little bit easier, and you can actually just kind of break it by hand, or you can use a knife to cut it. And this is your finished dish. You know, this is something that If I cooked at home for me and my wife, she would really love it. So now that we have our finished dishes, let me just say, come and see me here at Grayling. Just come on and see us. We're here located in Winston-Salem, 1900 Renola Road. Thank you. So right here, we are in our main dining room, and this is what your table can look like here at Grayling or at home, if you chooses to set it up just like this. And I know in my cooking, when I was doing the demo, I didn't give you the ingredients in terms of the amounts, but you will receive all of that recipes and all the good stuff in the email. Thank you for having me. Thank Deb for letting me again be a part of the AgingWell series. It was my pleasure to create this dish and be a part of this series. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chef. And one thing I realized from one of our very astute attendees is that sometimes wax paper, the Parmesan can melt on the wax paper. So you may also want to try parchment paper to make your Parmesan crisps. So anyway, thank you, Chef. And another way to keep us active, feeling good, even in the heat of summer, is to practice Tai Chi. Now, we are so lucky to have Jerry Hopping here in Winston-Salem. He is a certified professional Tai Chi instructor, and he's also a retired physician's assistant from Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist. So one afternoon he came over, we got in my backyard, and he demonstrated some of his wonderful Tai Chi that is wonderful for body and mind health. So Jerry, take it away.
Thanks, Deb. It's really great to be part of Aging Well. I'm going to be talking about Tai Chi. Tai Chi is a very ancient form of exercise. It started as a martial art form in China about 1,300 years ago. And nobody really knows exactly how it got started. But it was first brought to this country by a gentleman by the name of Qin Manqing back in the 1960s. And it is practiced here mostly for the health benefits, much more so than for the martial art applications. The movements are done very relaxed, very slow. They're very calming movements. They focus a lot on breathing, on the breath. Part of Tai Chi involves Qigong, which is actually energy utilization with the breath. So breathing becomes very, very important. The basic principle of Tai Chi is yin-yang. We have yang, which is expanding, and we have yin, which is gathering. So you can't have one without the other. So the movements incorporate yin-yang in everything that is done as far as practice of Tai Chi. So one of the main benefits for seniors, and that's primarily all I teach are seniors, is mobility. It really focuses a lot on posture so that you remain much more upright. It increases your awareness of where your body parts are, increases your ability for proprioception, as well as strengthening and flexibility. Flexibility primarily in the hip joints, which, as we know, as we age, our hips become much more constricted, making it much easier to trip and fall. So Tai Chi is very good for those people who have some mobility issues. It can be learned by anybody at any age. However, once you learn it, it's a process that you can continue to use throughout your lifetime. I'm going to demonstrate a very simple Qigong set. This is one of the ones that we use in basic practice. As you can see, the exercises are very gentle. They're very flowing, nothing stagnant. You wouldn't think that it would improve your cardiovascular status, but it can. It can actually, and it can really strengthen joints a lot. So there's a lot of benefits. Nothing is ever stressful in Tai Chi or Qigong. What I just demonstrated was a Qigong set. There's no real martial art applications in any of that. It's just simply for the movement and the development of Qi, which is our energy. This is our life source. This is what makes us alive, is our Qi. So we always want to focus whenever we're doing or practicing Tai Chi or Qigong, we're always focusing on the Qi and on Yin Yang. A lot of these exercises or movements can be done while sitting. So if somebody has mobility issues, certainly that is no reason to not do some Qigong type exercises. So the form that I just did can also be done from a sitting position. So I'll demonstrate. You want to keep your feet flat on the floor, and you don't want your back touching the back of the chair or stool, whatever you're using. There are a lot of videos out there of various Qigong type exercises. that can be very beneficial. However, I'll also recommend that along with that, that you try to find a class, an instructor. It's really difficult to learn the real essence of Tai Chi and Qigong without the assistance of a professional instructor. You can learn the basic movements, but it's much more complicated than that. It's much more intricate than that. Schools can be found everywhere. There's a lot. I can only address the ones that are here locally. We have several programs going on here in Winston-Salem, Walkertown, and also in Greensboro. If you want information on classes, on where you might be able to pick something up, go to WinstonSalemTaiChi.com. And the school that I am with, all the classes currently available are listed on that website. There's a lot of there's probably other schools around, but those are the only one. That's the school that I'm familiar with, that I work with. So you can Google in your area, wherever you happen to be. I'm sure you can find somebody. It's become very, very popular. It's being looked at a lot recently because of the benefits for aging. I know there's a big program up at Harvard University that is looking at Tai Chi and Qigong specifically for aging. So there's a lot of research going on and being done regarding this particular type of exercise. It's been great. I've enjoyed my time with you, and I hope that this will help you age well.
Thanks, Jerry. It was so relaxing just even watching him do that. So I know that I'm going to be looking for a class. So maybe we should do a group class. Anyway, so our next educational speaker is Dr. Ashleigh Medda. And you know, her expression, it's hard to put your best foot forward when your feet hurt. I'm going to take it one step further. It's hard to even function well when your feet hurt. So I'm excited to present to you one of our providers at Atrium Health, Wake Forest Baptist, Dr. Ashleigh Medda, who's going to show us some preventive measures and some ways maybe we can help our feet feel better.
I'm just going to share my screen here, so give me 1 second.
And Dr. Medda, you can actually start your video again. There we go.
Okay, I'm so glad everyone can see my video, and I just appreciate you for allowing me to join the Aging Well series. So we are going to talk about.
Can I interrupt you one more time? Can you switch your screens, because we're looking at the speaker's view?
Goodness, sure. Well, goodness, I'm just giving it all away, aren't I?
Well, I'm excited to hear.
Is that better?
That is perfect.
Okay, let me go back to the beginning. Here we go. So thank you again for letting me join you. I'm going to talk to you today about how to put your best foot forward. And so like Deb said, I'm Ashleigh Medda. I'm an assistant professor and a podiatrist in the Department of Orthopedic Surgery and Rehabilitation at Wake Forest University School of Medicine. So I just want to start with, what is a podiatrist? So a podiatrist is a doctor who treats foot and ankle problems. So any problem that relates to your foot and ankle, you can see a podiatrist for. We treat anything from toenails to tendinitis to ankle fractures with and without surgery. So this is our podiatry family here at Wake Forest. Our department makes up of 10 providers and then 9 resident trainees. And so this is a picture of us at our most recent podiatry resident graduation. And so we like to think of ourselves as lifelong learners, always trying to figure out new procedures, new research so that we can better treat our patients. So putting our best foot forward, what does that actually mean, especially when it comes to our aging feet? At every point in our life, it's important to take care of our feet, but especially as we age, because really our feet are a ticket to keeping us active and mobile and independent. So I could have talked for probably like 5 hours on common foot problems that could affect you as we get older. But I really wanted to talk in depth about a couple of topics. So I picked the top 3 that I see in my clinic, and I had clinic today. So I actually saw all 3 of these in multiple people. So I do feel like these are pretty common. So we're going to talk about plantar fasciitis. We're going to talk about bunions and toenail fungus. Okay, so to start it off, we're going to talk about plantar fasciitis. And people come to my clinic, they often complain of heel pain. Maybe they feel like they might have a stone bruise. And so getting into some of the background about plantar fasciitis, it is very, very common. It's amazing that it affects about 2 million people each year. That is a huge number. And so what your plantar fascia actually is I like to think of it as an internal arch support. And so you can see in this diagram here, it is a band of tissue that starts from the bottom of your heel and spans all along the bottom of your foot. And so it really helps to hold up and support your arch. You can also see in this diagram, your Achilles tendon comes down and also inserts on the back of your heel and kind of comes around the bottom of your heel to connect to your plantar fascia. So keep that in the back of your mind because that is going to be important in a couple of slides. So what causes plantar fasciitis? So that is when this band of tissue that is trying so hard to hold up and support your arch becomes under too much pressure or too much strain, and this can cause a lot of irritation and inflammation. So when people come to my clinic, of course, they complain about pain on the bottom of their heel, but not always. Sometimes they complain about pain in the arch or even in both places. Classically, people experience pain with first steps after rest. And so why that is when you're resting, that band of tissue just relaxes. It becomes a little bit tight. It's not stretched and worked out. And so when you go to step, it quickly has to stretch out. And that can cause micro tearing and a lot of inflammation in that area. People don't always have pain, though, with their first step after rest. Sometimes people can have pain after they've been doing a lot of activity. So why that happens is because your plantar fascia is working so hard to support your arch, it gets tired. And so then you can develop a lot of pain and irritation after it tires out. Risk factors for developing plantar fasciitis, it can happen to anybody. It can happen at any age, but specifically if you start a new exercise program, for instance, you go to the doctor and your doctor recommends that you start an exercise program and you are so gung-ho about it and you start walking 3 miles a day. That can lead to plantar fasciitis. You really need to kind of ease your body into a new activity. Also, repetitive high impact activity like running or dancing can also put a lot of stress and strain on your plantar fascia. Prolonged standing, my patients who have jobs as cashiers, nurses, teachers, a profession that you're standing on hard concrete floor can definitely lead to plantar fasciitis. Your foot type can play a part in this too. Having too flat of a foot or too high of an arch can also predispose you to getting plantar fasciitis. Going back to that first diagram when I talked about your Achilles tendon, if your Achilles or your calf is tight, it is connected to your plantar fascia. So when it's tight, it can start tugging on your plantar fascia and create plantar fasciitis. And then certainly obesity or being overweight can also lead to plantar fasciitis. If you think about with every step you take, you have 2 to 3 times your body weight with each step. you can understand why having some excess weight can also contribute to plantar fasciitis. I think the best news is even though plantar fasciitis is very common, more than 90% of my patients will get better. However, it can be a long road, so you do have to be patient. Sometimes it can even take up to 10 months to really get better. When people come to my clinic, I usually try to do a treatment program with a two-prong approach. So number one, we focus on stretching. So stretching out that plantar fascia, stretching out your Achilles that's connected, and then supporting that internal arch with an external arch or a more supportive shoe. But number two is really trying to reduce inflammation. Let me go to my next slide. So, getting back to the stretching and support, first of all, we want to start with an exercise program, and I've sent Deb some of the exercises that I actually give my patients in clinic, so you'll be able to look at those. And then, then again, trying to support that internal arch with an external arch, so wearing inserts or orthotics and supportive shoes. You may even want to try a night splint, so that helps to stretch out your Achilles and your plantar fascia while you're sleeping. But that is not the end all be all. That certainly helps in the long term and helps prevent plantar fasciitis from coming back, but it doesn't do a lot in the short term to help with the pain and the inflammation. So this is one problem that we do a lot of steroid injections for. I like to do steroid injections for this problem because really it helps, or it puts the medicine where the problem is. But certainly we can do oral medications, including anti-inflammatories and oral steroids. But one treatment option that isn't anything to do with medicine would be ice. So ice definitely helps to reduce inflammation. So that's a good one to use as well. Very rarely do people actually have to go on to have surgery, less than 5% of patients. So I think that's good news there too. If you do have to go on to have surgery, what we're doing in surgery is we are releasing part of your plantar fascia. So that allows it, so we're surgically stretching that plantar fascia out. And if you have a heel spur, we remove that as well. And then sometimes, getting back to your tight Achilles, we also lengthen your Achilles, which is shown in the diagram there on the right-hand side. So how can we prevent plantar fasciitis? Certainly wearing good shoes and inserts, trying, support that plantar fascia, stretching, making sure your plantar fascia and your Achilles is stretched out, and just remembering when you start a new activity, go slow. All right, our next topic is talking about bunions. So a lot of people who come into the office complain of a bump at their big toe. Very interestingly, 1 out of every 3 people over 65 years of age will develop some degree of bunion. And the number one cause is just your genetics. So you can't run from your genes, but there are some things that you can do over the course of your life to help prevent bunion. So certainly the shoes that we wear, pointed toe shoes, high heels, can predispose you to getting a bunion, including your, in addition to your genetics. The activity, the wear and tear that we put our feet through. So thinking about high impact sports and also ballerinas on points, that can damage your big toe joint, and certainly inflammation conditions. So I talk to my patients a lot that even though it looks like you have a bump or a growth on your foot, it's actually not really a growth. It's just your bone, your normal bone that has become misaligned. So in these x-rays here, you can see the normal foot on the left-hand side and then the bunion on the right-hand side. So I don't know if you can see my pointer here, but this is, straight first metatarsal is what we call that. But over here, you can see how that metatarsal should be here, but it has rotated out. So when you come into the office, I always think it's important when we're talking about a bunion to get these x-rays. And why that is because I want to draw these angles that is shown on these x-rays. And so what the angles help me do is to classify your bunion into mild, moderate, or severe. Now, I do tell people the categories don't necessarily line up with pain. So sometimes a very severe bunion doesn't cause people pain at all. And sometimes a mild bunion can be very painful. But what it does is if it ever does come down to surgery, this helps us to pick what surgical procedure we would do because there are over 100 different bunion procedures. So when people come into the clinic, they often complain about a wider foot. And so now we know that's because that bone is misaligned and it has moved out of place. When you have that misalignment of bone and that bone sticking out where it shouldn't, it can create this bump, which causes some redness and can be painful. Also, it can create a callus. So calluses form anywhere where there's excess rubbing or pressure. Calluses aren't always a problem. You know, calluses are actually your body's defense mechanism to toughen up that skin, but they certainly can become a problem when they start, get so thick and they start pressing into the skin and causing pain. Bunion is a progressive disorder, and so as it gets worse, it can create stiffness and arthritis at your big toe joint. Now, I often talk to people about it's hard to predict, how much worse your bunion is going to get. It very well could stay just like it is today forever. It could get worse, but it's hard to predict if it's going to get significantly worse in the next year versus the next 10 years. So that's just something that we have to monitor. Now, most bunions we can actually treat without surgery. So that comes down to change in your shoe gear. So wearing a wider shoe and a more accommodative shoe. And so what that means is if you look at this shoe in the picture, you want a soft top cover, something that's not very rigid like a leather. So something that's cloth, because when your bunion needs to expand, when that bone kind of moves out of place, this allows for that expansion. You can also try some different pads like the toe spacer that's shown up top, or the bunion guard that's going to help protect that bump from rubbing and being pain, which is the bunion guard over on your right hand side. You can also try inserts and orthotics that just helps to hold your foot and maintain its shape. And then certainly if your bunion's painful enough, you can try some medications like anti-inflammatories or over-the-counter pain relievers like Tylenol. I do think it's important to note that none of these non-surgical treatments are actually going to correct your bunion, but what they do is try to prevent your bunion from getting worse and trying to help you, complete your activities, do the things you want to do in your life without pain. Now, people always ask me, when is it time to fix my bunion? And so I tell people it's time to fix your bunion when your bunion starts to limit your normal daily activities. So say you like to walk a mile, but because of your bunion, it's so painful you can't walk, even when you're trying to change shoes, wear padding, maybe wear an insert. That's the time to start thinking about your bunion. And that definitely is or thinking about correcting your bunion. And that's definitely the time when you should talk to your podiatrist, get x-rays, and really have a discussion about what procedure is best for you. Because like I touched on earlier, there are over 100 different procedures. It's very hard to prevent a bunion because the number one cause of a bunion is your genetics, but certainly wearing well-fitting shoes and inserts, stretching and resting your feet when needed can help prevent your bunion from getting worse and being painful. And our last topic here is on toenail fungus. And so a lot of people come into my clinic complaining of thick, discolored nails. So toenail fungus actually affects about 15% of the general population. But one thing that I thought was really interesting, and I didn't really know until I started getting ready for this presentation, was that about 50% of people older than 70 will actually have toenail fungus. Toenail fungus is contagious, but it's really important to know that it doesn't really spread past your nails. So what that means is it's not the type of fungus that's ever going to get into your bloodstream and make you sick all over. So I tell people that because if you don't want to treat your toenail fungus, or we try to treat it and can't get rid of it, I always want you to know it's not harmful for you. So what does toenail fungus look like? It can cause your toenails to become discolored. It can cause them to be more yellow, brown, and black. It can definitely cause them to be thicker. And if you think about your nail, it's like plyboard. So there's little layers. And so the fungus gets in those layers and can actually lift your nail off the nail bed. So it's very common for people in my clinic who have toenail fungus to tell me that they lost a nail. Those will grow back. Unfortunately, they will grow back with fungus, but I don't want you to be too alarmed if that happens to you. And it can also cause cracking as well. The mainstay of treatment, of course, is non-surgical. Like I said, we don't actually have to treat it. We can just do periodic trimming to try to help them from not getting so thick they're pressing down into your shoes. But if you do want to treat it, there's kind of two different treatment options. So one are topicals, and those range anywhere from like over-the-counter tea tree oil, vinegar soaks. Actually, Vicks Vapor Rub is one that I recommend to my patients. There's medical literature that show it works. And then the other option is an oral pill called Lamisil. I think topicals are great because there's really no side effects. It just kind of sits on your nail. Sometimes it can irritate your skin. The drawback, though, is that they're not very effective. The most effective treatment on the market is the oral pill Lamisil, but it's still not 100% effective. It's about 80%, so higher than the topicals. But it does, like any systemic medicine, get filtered somewhere. So this one gets filtered through your liver. So before we start this medication, we always check your liver panel to make sure your liver is healthy enough to filter this medication. Another option is laser treatment. This doesn't really do a good job of killing the fungus, but it can make your nail appear more clear. And then lastly, we think about surgically or permanently removing your nail. If we've tried some of these treatments, it's not getting better and your nail is so thick, it's pressing into your shoes and it's painful. One of my patients, I think, said it best where, it's my toenail. I shouldn't have to think about my toenail all day. So your toenails are there for a reason to protect the little bones of your toe underneath your nail. But when your toenail starts causing more problems than good, it's just time to remove it. Ways you can prevent toenail fungus is making sure you're cleaning your nail trimmers, so either your nail cutters, your nippers before each use, making sure you're keeping your feet dry because fungus loves warm, dark, moist environments, which is our shoes. Avoid going barefoot in communal areas like in the gym or the pool, trying to wear a flip-flop in showers at the gym, and then definitely avoiding aggressive nail clipping. If you clip your nails too short or too rounded or pointed, you're at risk of accidentally kind of clipping your skin, and that can be a portal for toenail fungus. So that's all I have for you today. I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you, and I'm here for any questions.
So I know that Ricky has raised a hand, and Ricky, if you would please put your question in the chat. I am going to open that right now. And I know the first question is, when should I see a podiatrist for my plantar fasciitis? I'm sorry, I can't. Clearly, I'm not a podiatrist.
Well, I think so how we kind of touched on, there's a lot of things you can do at home, taking ibuprofen, doing some stretches, changing shoes, kind of taking a rest too. But when those things aren't working, or certainly you have excruciating pain where you can't walk on your foot, I think it's important to see a podiatrist. Typically at your first visit, I'll take an x-ray just to make sure we're not missing, say, like a stress fracture or something like that. So I think that is when it's time to see a podiatrist.
And I actually have a question for you, because I have avoided those severely pointed shoes just because I already have a very long foot. And the reason I did it was never for health. It was just because I'm vain, but it made my foot look even longer. But looking at these x-rays now, this looks like this would be really just awful for the health of your foot. Those severely pointed shoes.
They definitely are. But I will say that sadly, by the time we start thinking about our feet, the damage usually has been done, because I'm there to say when I was younger, I wore high heels, even to work. Here I am trying to tell people to take care of their feet. I'm wearing pointed toed heels. So I need to take a lesson for myself. But, a lot of the things that we did in our teenage years, our 20s, those can have effects to our feet in the long term. But, trying not to continue those habits in the future, that can help a lot.
So what about wearing flip-flops? I think we all do that during the summer, especially if we're on vacation at the beach. I've heard that's actually not the best thing for your feet.
I think it really depends on what kind of flip-flop you're wearing. There's a couple different brands that I recommend. So FitFlop and UFOs, all of those honestly have it's almost like a orthotic built into those. So I think those are very supportive and those can be a great flip-flop. Now, I will tell you, I was the world's worst of getting the dollar flip-flops at Old Navy that would match all my different outfits, but do not wear those, throw those away and get yourself a very supportive flip-flop.
Okay, we've got some more questions. Are warts common or concern if there's no pain affiliated with them?
It's very similar to toenail fungus. So it's just an environment. It's very, very easy to pick the wart virus up, and it can be a little challenging to get rid of it. As long as it's not painful to you, it's not absolutely necessary that we treat them. Just know that it is contagious. And so trying to treat them to prevent them from spreading to other parts of your body, which could lead to pain, or other family members, that can be one reason to treat them.
Okay. Got another question. My mother stressed wearing a good shoe with good arch support and preferably lace shoes. This was for children in particular. Is that really a good practice? Does it make for healthier feet?
I think so. We only have 2 feet for our whole life. And so we have to take care of those. And if we have great parents, like it sounds like your mother was, who was really focused on your foot health, that can help you have great foot health as as we age. For pediatric patients who come to me with really flat feet, one treatment option that we do is actually getting them into very supportive shoes with a custom insert, because if we can support them as they grow, then hopefully we can hold their foot as is, and so it can help prevent their flat foot from getting worse. So I do think that there's a lot to that statement.
So basically, mom's always right. That's what it sounds like.
Yes. Now,
Okay.
as a mom to a 9-month-old, I know that is true.
Well, that's good.
I can't wait to tell her that as she grows.
We have another question. Are inserts good for peripheral nerve issues in the feet?
I think yes. So today I ordered probably 3 pairs of those for people with neuropathy. Now, they're not going to necessarily correct or help prevent your neuropathy from getting worse, but why we want you to be in an insert is because it will protect your feet. So with neuropathy, you probably don't feel your feet like you used to. And so that is a padding and a support to your feet to help your feet from getting damaged.
And then I guess a follow-up question to that is, should the inserts be prescribed as opposed to maybe over the counter?
If you have neuropathy, I definitely would recommend going the prescription route. Okay.
Is it best to go barefoot at home when possible?
I usually tell people it's not good for anyone to go barefoot. It's especially if you have hardwood floors or tile floors, that is just too much pressure on your feet, and it can lead to a lot of problems.
Well, honestly, I'm really glad that my feet aren't showing in this video right now, because I try to go barefoot as often as I can. So now I won't. Okay. What do you advise for Raynaud's syndrome? And I'm sure I mispronounced that. Raynauds syndrome.
So usually it's seeing a podiatrist, and sometimes in coordination with vascular medicine, who can prescribe certain medications, but really just keeping your feet warm, especially wearing socks and fur-lined boots in the winter, can be very helpful.
Okay. How harmful is it for teens to wear Croc shoes?
Oh, I actually don't mind Crocs at all. When people are having certain foot problems, like some Achilles tendonitis, maybe even some midfoot pain, and we're trying to get them to wear shoes in the house, it's not always the most convenient to put on a pair of tennis shoes and lace those up. So, I mean, honestly, I would recommend trying to wear one of those supportive flip-flops, or a Croc is fine in my book to have some support on your foot.
Okay. Well, Dr. Medda, thank you so very much for sharing your expertise. And again, all the attendees, you will be getting her comprehensive notes of what she gives out to her patients in your follow-up information. And until I see you next month, enjoy the remnants of summer and stay healthy, and let's all age well.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.